All right, Saints fans, it's time for another episode of Ranting and Raving. So today we're going to take a look at really part one of two for the upcoming 2023 draft. We're going to start with the defense, and the next episode we'll talk about the offense. I'm not really going to get into a mock draft, kind of like the NCAA men's basketball tournament. No one's ever picked a perfect draft. So, not that interested in it. What I do want to look at today is the players that I am interested in the Saints grabbing within the first two rounds and who I think they have a realistic opportunity of getting. So I would love CJ Stroud. He's my QB1. He ain't going to be there, so he's not going to be on the list. So on and so forth down throughout. So a couple of these players are mocked a little bit higher than where the Saints are picking at 29, but I am expecting them to be available somewhere in the 20s, and the Saints are known to be aggressive, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if they went up to get them. Some of these guys are mocked in rounds 2 or even into 3. Frankly, if you get a good player, I don't care if but my mock draft had this guy in round 3. You could have waited. Don't care. Draft good players. Especially draft good players who fit positions of need. And the Saints do have several of those. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look here at the players in the draft that I am interested in on the defensive side of the ball. So first up is Trenton Simpson. Brian can't speak English. So Trenton is a linebacker from Clemson. So of course our Stephon Anthony PTSD is immediately kicking in, and you see the last bullet point there. It could be Stephon Anthony the sequel. A little bit different, Stephon Anthony was more of a Mike. Trenton's more of a Will. And then Stephon got moved to Sam, and then he got moved out of the special teams. Then he got moved the fuck out of the NFL because he couldn't diagnose shit. I do think Trenton Simpson diagnoses better than Stephon Anthony did, although sometimes it's just hard to tell until guys get to the NFL, except for the really, really special players. He's not the largest linebacker, but that's something that matters less and less in today's game. Not only is the game, faster, it's more and more of a passing game, but also, speed kills. And the reality is that, force is mass times acceleration. And if he's 10 pounds underweight, but he's 20% faster than the other guy, he actually can hit just as hard. Quan Alexander is a great example of that. Quan wasn't a large linebacker, but Quan was a excellent athlete, and Quan absolutely could lay the hit on people. So there's certainly times where having mass is impactful, but it's not the most impactful thing. Like I said before, there are some questions about his ability to read and react, his ability to diagnose things. But I don't feel it's as bad as it was with Stephon Anthony. And at the end of the day, he is such an incredible athlete. I think he ran a 4.39, something like that. Pretty ridiculous speed for a linebacker, frankly. Makes a lot of impact plays with a lot of intensity. If you're going to take a gamble on a top level athlete who, and by the way, all of these boxes should be checked if you're taking a gamble, not just one of them. Looking at you, Peyton Turner, Marcus Davenport. A top level athlete who plays with a lot of passion, who seems to love the game, and who doesn't have character concerns. Who also has, again, Mickey, these boxes are important, check them all, who has tape that shows them being an impact player, not just someone who looks good running in tights. Trenton Simpson checks all those boxes. Do I think he's going to be the Saints pick at 29? I do not, for a few reasons. One, him being a will linebacker. That's the same spot Pete Wagner plays. Pete is not named Pete. Um, really, Brian, this is what you get for recording at night. We're gonna pretend that never happened. Pete Werner. They play the same position, so that's honestly my biggest reason why I don't think the Saints will be drafting him, but he's definitely should be in the sphere to me. In fact, I think he's the only linebacker that's in that as far as the first 2 rounds. Next on the list is Keon White. So you're going to see a lot of names here in this edge category because it's the single largest hole on the team. Cam Jordan's 34. Peyton Turner sucks. Carl Granderson isn't great. And they don't have anybody else. So most of these guys are going to be edges. Spoiler alert. What do I like about Keon White? Physically, he's a stud. You know, plus 6'5", plus 265. You know, good, really good athlete. Um, you know, needs coaching, which almost every guy does, especially anybody that you could get into the the mid to low 20s or even into the second round potentially. Um, yes, could be viewed as a little bit raw, but nothing like what Davenport was, or even Peyton Turner. Already has more refinement in his technique. But the biggest thing he has that those two don't is doesn't have a really bad injury history, and he has a fantastic motor. He plays hard. He plays through the whistle. He's an impact player. He had again, production. Mickey boxes, check him. Had really productive year. But he is a guy where you are still taking a little bit of a risk, simply because limited production. Really came on towards the end. Still has a lot of work to do, but has all the tools, and I think has, at least from what we can tell, seem to have the passion for the game and the intensity you need to be able to take advantage of the physical tools he has. And one of the big things, again, this is going to be a theme throughout. There were a few other defensive ends and edges that I looked at that didn't make this list, and spoiler, one of them was Van Ness. He's really slow to me. I don't like the way he closes on quarterbacks. This is becoming more and more of a mobile quarterbacks game. Guys who can break the pocket, who can extend plays, and you just can't have a team full of slow-footed behemoths. It's not effective. It does not work, period. Davenport wasn't slow. He had every other problem he had, but speed wasn't one of them. You just cannot have slow players. Not in today's NFL, especially not out on the edges and at the linebacker position. So, for that reason, Van Ness is off the list. Keon White is definitely still on it. Not my top guy, but if the Saints picked him in the first or the second round, I wouldn't have a problem with either of them. The next guy on here is a rare gimme player. I watched the second most of any of the guys we're going to talk about today's tape was actually Felix Anudike Uzoma out of Kansas State. I really like his tape. I don't, again, I couldn't care. Oh, it's a reach. You could have got him here. I don't care. Don't give a shit. Couldn't care less. Don't give a flying fuck what your mock draft said. If the Saints took him at 29 and he's anything like what I think he's going to be, don't care. Good player. He produces. Couldn't care less if you could have got him in the second. He has power and speed. He's got really good size. He's not a freak athlete, but he's a very good athlete. I mentioned earlier, one of the main things I was looking at for these guys is how do they close on the ball? How do they finish plays? Do they, if the quarterback starts to break contain, do they have the ability to hit a second gear, close down, tackle them? That really is the one thing Cam Jordan's never had. Well, okay, that and a quick first step. He has both. He's athletic, he's fluid, he can bend, he can finish, he has actual pass rush moves, and again, like all of these guys, he's still developing, but he's already developed enough that I think he can have an impact in year one. And if the secondary is good, I think he can have a really good impact in year one. But I think he could be a very effective player for the Saints sooner rather than later, and potentially a stud. Um, Probably my second favorite guy of all the players we're going to talk about today. And I think of the two of them, he might be the safer pick, but does not have the higher ceiling. So the next guy on the list here is Myles Murphy. Again, from what I saw, and just probably should say this now, everything that I'm talking about is not with the expert of opinion. Um, I watched these guys. Briefly talk a little bit about my process. I had a list of about 30 players for offense and about 30 players for defense. I narrow it down by watching the highlight reel of each player. I only watch more tape if their highlight reel intrigues me. And here's the reason why. If your highlight reel, which is your best plays, if you don't look like a stud in your highlight reel, you're not going to look like one on the rest of your tape. And if I'm taking you in the first or second round, I should have the expectation that you're going to be an immediate impact player. So if you're not wowing me at least a couple of times in a highlight reel that makes me want to watch more, I don't want to watch more. When I watched Murphy, he was inconsistent. Not necessarily with effort, but just sometimes would get stonewalled, sometimes would make really good plays. Again, another guy, ideal size. Without question, this guy is going to be on the Saints list. You look at his RAS score, you look at other elements. I promise you he's going to be someone they're going to consider. Again, has the closing speed to make plays. That is one of the big things I'm looking at here for the defensive ends. Yeah, some guys can get sacks because they get schemed up or you get coverage sacks. But if you get free, can you actually finish the play? And that short area quickness and kind of that second gear acceleration, which we call closing speed, if you don't have it, I'm not interested at all in taking you in the first round. He is a guy, partially because of his size, he can be a bull rusher. But he also has showed other moves, showed the ability to hand fight, showed the ability to long arm players. Actually does that quite a lot. And then again, he's a good athlete. So sometimes he just blows by the guy because good athlete, which is something you want to see. Here's my one concern with him: not huge production, is inconsistent. He has really big boomer bust potential to me. I'm not seeing a ton of pass rush moves. Um, like his his compadre. Sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Um, from Clemson, Simpson. I don't. I do have some concerns about his consistency and his reliability, but I would be perfectly fine taking him at 29 and making that gamble. And if the Saints traded up to like 23 and it cost like next year's fourth, third or fourth or something like that, I wouldn't lose my mind about it. Like I wouldn't be over the moon, but I would not lose my mind about it. I think he'd be a better player than Peyton Turner the moment he walks in the building. And again, kind of checking those boxes, he definitely seems to be a guy that cares about winning, likes football, likes playing. Doesn't have motor issues, and again, he's not super raw. He has some good tape, but he does have some inconsistencies, and I do think I think he's probably the biggest boomer bust guy on this list. He could be really, really good in the NFL. He could be out of the league in 3 or 4 years. Obviously, every player could be that, but like I kind of see those both with him. Um, Nolan Smith is the hardest player to gauge of all the guys we talk about today. He has sub 4.4 speed as an edge. It's an outside linebacker type player, which, by the way, just as a quick aside on Simpson, uh, if the Saints ran that type of defense, I would love to convert him to an outside linebacker. I think he'd be amazing at it. Neither here nor there. Smith is actually pretty damn strong. Holds up along the line, holds up under contact a lot better than you would expect him to, especially with his size because he is a smaller, slighter framed guy. Has had some injury concern, doesn't have ideal size, doesn't have a ton of sack production. Now again, Torres Peck, this last year, I think he had 3.5 or was it 4 sacks, so not incredible production, but also got injured obviously. So what would he have ended the year with if he doesn't get hurt? Who knows? But this guy is not a pure pass rusher. This is a guy who could be an absolute weapon in a defense that uses players like that. That isn't Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen would have absolutely no idea what to do with Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith is on today's show because he's good enough athlete that if he was there at 29, I know fans would be clamoring for him. But I don't want the Saints to go anywhere near Nolan Smith. It has nothing to do with whether or not I think he's any good. If a Bill Belichick, for instance, got their hands on him, he would be a terror for the NFL for the next decade. I genuinely believe that as long as he's healthy. But I don't trust DA with a player like this at all. He has no idea what to do with him. They would try to convert him into a fucking corner or something, and he would be out of the league in a couple of years, like Zach Bond's about to be. So great athlete, not overwhelming production, even though he has got like Von Miller numbers in tights. Doesn't have Von Miller numbers on the field or on tape. But I think he could be a special player. I just don't think he could do it here. This next guy, definitely a second-round pick candidate. But this is so Tuli Tuipulotu is a guy, if the Saints took him in the second or even the third, if they got impact players, especially if they get the last guy we're going to talk about at 29, let's say get a running back at 40 and took him at 71 or did the reverse, I would have absolutely no problem with that draft. In fact, I would be quite happy with it. Am I putting bigger Kikaha here because they're both Polynesian? Yes, I am. Not actually entirely. It's more because of how they went. Kikaha actually obviously had more production in college, but Tuli is a guy who wins with his hands. He wins with technique. He wins with leverage. He wins with effort. Here's my big concern with him and why I would not, under any circumstance, take him in the first round. But why I think he probably can still be a good player just because he's one of those guys. He doesn't test incredibly well, but he's just good at football. So I wouldn't be mad at the pick as long as it's not in the first round. But it's why I have him definitely second, third round type guy. Not, again, because of mock drafts, but just because of that expectation of immediate impact player. I'm not so sure he's ever going to be that, just because I don't know if he's an NFL athlete in that way. Lack of closing speed, definitely a concern. But as a depth guy, he's a guy who I could see hanging around in the league for a long time and being a 6 to 8 sack a year guy as a rotational edge player. With the occasional random 12 sack year. Like I could 100% see that being his career arc, which is why he's on the list. The final member on the list today is Aratomiwa Arabawore. I probably butchered that, but I tried. We're going to call him AA. And you get hit by this guy, you're going to need Arabawore Anonymous. That's what you're going to need, because the term freak athlete exists for guys like him. And when you look at his RAS score, other than the fact that he's 6'2", but when you look at the rest of his athletic measurables, it's like, oh my god, it's another Davenport. No, he's not. Yeah, he is a RAS god, no question. But he's not a Davenport. He has a fantastic motor. He gets moved all over the defensive line at Northwestern, makes plays on the edge, makes plays on the interior. In the NFL, I think he's a defensive tackle. The first defensive coordinator that grabs him, sticks him on the interior, and goes, create effing chaos and starts running stunts with him, which he absolutely can do, and then just has him use his unbelievable explosion, strength, drive. He's got all of the elements you're looking for. This guy has game breaker potential. When I'm talking game breaker, Aaron Donald's a game breaker. Von Miller was a game breaker. You're talking about defensive players who go and just tank drives on their own. Am I saying he's going to be Aaron Donald? No, I don't necessarily think so. But that level of, oh my God, he just screwed up their entire offensive game plan. Hey, they're on 3rd and 23 because he got a 12-yard tackle for loss on the running back after causing or getting a sack the play before. Yeah, he can do that. Or flip it, tackle for loss on first down and then sack on second. Doesn't really matter. You get the idea. Incredible athlete, but it actually shows up on tape. And again, effort, obviously closing speed, explosiveness, but he's not totally raw. This is not a guy who has no technique. He's not Davenport again, who in 5 years in the NFL has learned one move: bull rush. Davenport, what if they stop the bull rush? Bull rush more. Then fall over, get injured. When you come back, bull rush. What are you going to do to the training table? Bull rush. Actually, it's probably his most effective move is bull rushing the training table. He's not that kind of guy. He's shown a spin, he's shown a rip, he's shown a long arm, he's shown a bunch of different things. Again, used all over the defensive line, which is actually a good thing because been productive from all of those different players, areas, impactful from all those different areas. Here's the only concern. He's not raw. Raw is not the right word, but he is a bit of a tweener. Not quite long enough to be a defensive end, a little short to be a defensive tackle. I don't think it'll matter. He's 6'2". Here's what you do. You get a big power pig nose guard. You stick him next to him, and then you line him up next to Cam Jordan. And you let him learn from Cam, play off of Cam, and also make Cam's life 100 times easier. Because if you leave him one-on-one, he's eventually going to make some plays just because of the gifts he has. And if you ever shift guys over to him, you make Cam's life easier. And again, you can run stunts. There's a lot of games you can run on him. He's used to doing a lot of that stuff, so it's not new to him. He's, my opinion, if he is there at 29 and the Saints stay put, he's the pick. I don't think they will be able to resist the combination of measurables, how he addresses a need, the fit, everything is there, and I would be completely fine with the pick. I don't think this is another Peyton Turner who had massive injury, red flags all over the place, and apparently the Saints are like, yeah, we have one of the worst medical staffs in the NFL. We can fix that. That didn't happen at all. Also, we're not actually sure he loves football. Let's give him $20 million guaranteed on the rookie pay scale, and that'll work. It didn't work either. I don't think he has that problem. Definitely not a Davenport, completely different type of player. Yes, incredible athlete, but everything else about them really is different. So for me, if he's there at 29, or even if he's there at 23, the Saints may decide to move up to get him. If they decide that they want to go to AA, sign me up, give me my chip. Because I think this guy is going to be an impact player in the NFL. I think the fact that the Saints do still have a solid defense, they have great vets to learn from still. I think Cam Jordan's a great player for him to line up next to and learn from. I would really, really, really be happy with this pick if they do go defense in the first round. So that's going to wrap up today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you agree or disagree or feel like I left any players off of the list, feel free to call those out in the comments section. And if you did enjoy today's video, very much appreciate it if you'd be willing to like, obviously, like I said, comment and subscribe. Go ahead and hit that bell. And I'll be putting out pretty much weekly content, especially as we get into the season, bi-weekly. Lots of Saints content and some other stuff just for fun when I feel like talking about other topics as well. So hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you guys soon when we take a look at the offense.